Okay, we're going to start in chapter 4, verse 41. Then Moses set aside 3 cities east of the Jordan, to which anyone who had killed a person could flee if he had unintentionally killed his neighbor without malice aforethought. He could flee into one of these cities and save his life. The cities were these: Bezer in the desert plateau for the Reubenites, Ramoth in Gilead for the Gadites, and Golan and Bashan for the Manassites. Okay, remember, you've got 2.5 tribes on the east side of the Jordan because they like the grazing land, so they stay there. Why didn't he assign 3 cities on the west side of the Jordan? Because they haven't gone in and conquered it yet.
Right, yeah, because they hadn't been.
We don't live there yet, so we're not going to assign any cities there. Sure. But for the land that we've taken for our own, there's now 3 cities of refuge. And you all probably know about the cities of refuge.
Yeah,
everybody's familiar with that? Okay. The big issue was the kinsman redeemer was also a blood venger. So in tribal days, if you were the closest relative of someone who got killed, you were kind of obligated by honor to go kill the person that killed your relative. And again, it was very much like gang warfare. You know, if you had the reds and the blues, and one of the blues kills a red, and the red has to go kill a blue to balance out the question of blood. That's also the same person you would find in the book of Ruth, who would come to redeem your property if you lost it. Okay, it's whoever your nearest relative was. And so this gives a person a chance to flee someplace where they're actually going to hold a trial and see if it was done intentionally. Because are all kinsmen reasonable?
No.
Now, there are some people, and I've known a number of them, who, if they perceive a wrong, whether it was intentional or not, they want vengeance just because they lost something. So if they lost a relative, they want revenge. And this gives a person an opportunity to go and have his case judged and, try and save his life. But we'll get into more details of that later in the book. Then you have verse 44. This is the law Moses set before the Israelites. These are the stipulations, decrees, and laws Moses gave them when they came out of Egypt, and were in the valley near Beth Peor, east of the Jordan, in the land of Sihon, king of the Amorites, who reigned in Heshbon and was defeated by Moses and the Israelites as they came out of Egypt. They took possession of his land and the land of Og, king of Bashan, and 2 Amorite kings east of the Jordan. This land extended from Aroer on the rim of the Arnon Gorge to Mount Sion, that is Hermon, and included all of the Arabah east of the Jordan, as far as the sea of the Arabah, below the slopes of Pisgah. Once again, he is saying, this is the law Moses set for the Israelites, the stipulation, decrees, and laws. And this forms an inclusio with verse 13. In verse 13, he says almost exactly word for word the same thing. Okay, so he's like bracketing off this little section. And the main point of this section was to ensure, once again, that the Israelites knew to stay away from idolatry. And we talked about last week about the 3 words connected together: idolatry, corruption, and evil. And how when you make an idol, you corrupt the true image of God, which is reflected where? In the Torah. The character of God is reflected by the laws of the Torah. You can't make an idol that would reflect God's character. So any idol is a corruption of his true image. Where's the other place you find the image of God? Come on. Y'all know the
image, man in our own image.
Man is made in the image of God. Yes.
Okay.
And so the image of God is reflected in man as he lives by the Torah. Okay? And that's God's real goal, is that when you go out into the world, that you reflect who he is. And you may have heard me tell this analogy before. How does a goldsmith know when his gold is pure? You know how gold processing. You take the rocks of the gold and you heat them up and the gold melts out and you throw the rock away. And then as he keeps it hot, the dross floats to the top and he scoops it off. How does he know when it's done?
Well, when you take
No more.
When you see his reflection.
I've done it. When
That's
you see
it.
his reflection.
When you see your reflection like in a mirror,
Yeah.
then you know you're done. When is God going to be done with us?
When he sees himself.
Yeah, when he looks at us and sees himself. Okay, and that's where Romans 8 comes in and says, you've been called and predestined to be what? Conformed to the image of the Messiah. Who, like if you read Hebrews 1:1-4, Messiah is the perfect reflection of the Father. Okay, well now, he's shown us who the Father is. Now he says, I want you to show the world who the Father is. Okay, so we're supposed to be reflected in that. But notice again, he's adding all these stipulation laws and decrees as an explanation of the Ten Commandments. And he tells them, I'm going to explain the Torah to you. And I'm going to do it through these laws, stipulations, and decrees and judgments. And then he goes right on in to chapter 5, which is the re-giving of the covenant law. Why is the covenant law being re-given in Deuteronomy?
New generation.
New generation. And he wants them to make sure before they enter the land that they're going to go in and set up the kingdom of God, not their own kingdom. He wants his kingdom to be set up. And his kingdom is where his law is lived. When you pray the Lord's Prayer, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven, what is the first place that has to be applied?
In your own life.
Your own life. Yeah, self-government is the first level of government. And God gives us the Torah and says, live by my Torah. Okay, Deuteronomy chapter 5. Moses summoned all Israel and said, Hear, O Israel, the decrees and laws I declare in your hearing today. Learn them and be sure to follow them. Yahweh our God made a covenant with us at Horeb. It was not with our fathers that Yahweh made this covenant, but with us, with all of us who are alive here today. Yahweh spoke to you face to face out of the fire on the mountain. At that time I stood between Yahweh and you to declare to you the word of Yahweh, because you were afraid of the fire and did not go up the mountain. Okay. Now, there's a kind of an interesting question here. It was not with your fathers that I made this covenant, but with you. That's kind of odd. I wonder why he says that. Well, as I said, it raises an interesting question. It could be he's referring back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. But the emphasis is on, I'm making this covenant with you right now. And it's a covenant renewal. That's the whole book of Deuteronomy is. It's covenant renewal. So that the new generation will remember to do what they're supposed to. Anyway, verse 6. First commandment. I am Yahweh your God who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. You shall have no other gods before me. In most cases, you'll see this, and they will tell you that verse 6 is a preamble to the commandments. And I would tend to object to that, because it's not a preamble. I think it's part of the first commandment. In other words, I am Yahweh your God. God has to identify himself. If he just says, have no other gods, but doesn't identify himself as part of the commandment, then who is really being told? I mean, what is he actually saying? But notice that he begins, I am Yahweh your God, who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. In other words, I am Yahweh who saved you. Do you see a parallel there?
Yes.
Because I saved you, you are to keep me as your God. In other words, I've already done the first step. The salvation out of Egypt was by grace. Okay, just like we talked about in the church, you're saved by grace, then because you're his people, you walk in his ways. You keep his law. You don't walk in his law in order to be his people. It's because he saved you. And there's a real clear parallel here between, who brought you out of Egypt, and 1 Corinthians 6, 19 and 20, where he says, who bought you with the price of the blood of the Lamb. Brought and bought are very close concepts, okay? He's saying, I saved you, now live to glorify me. Here's the way to do it. You walk in my ways. You walk in my law.
That's a foreshadowing of Messiah, who brought us out of the bondage of sin.
Oh, yeah. In fact,
Same thing.
and every year, once a year, we do something that really brings that forward as a concept. This is the foreshadow of Messiah coming.
Right.
And what is that we do?
Passover.
Passover. Yeah, when you do the Passover meal and the whole Seder, you begin to realize that that whole thing was there to teach us about Messiah coming. Okay, and guess who really got that right from the start? John the Baptist. Because when he sees Yeshua, John chapter 1, what's he say? Behold the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world. Okay? There is no sacrifice that takes away the sin of the world. The only way you could make that comparison would be with Passover. Okay, because they're covering their sins to leave Egypt. And God saves them by grace. All they have to do is take upon themselves the sign of the covenant so that the angel of death doesn't come in and kill them. Okay? But it says, you shall have no other gods before me. Does that mean that you can never pray to anybody else or ask anybody else for anything?
In terms of a foreign god?
Yeah.
Yes, that is what it means.
Well, what if you're not putting them before Yahweh, but you're just asking them for some help on the side?
It's okay as long as you're not, raising them up in any form as a form of worship.
So if God doesn't answer my prayer for something, I can go to Buddha and appeal to him?
I wouldn't
Or
recommend it.
Asheroth, like
That's
they did
the same as putting him before.
That's exactly right. You can't have any ancillary gods at all, okay? Because if you appeal to them because God didn't answer you the way you wanted, then you are taking that God and putting him before Yahweh. So it's not just a matter of you have to keep Yahweh first.
First and
It's-
only.
Don't have any
First
other
and only.
gods.
Okay, it's very
At all.
exclusive.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's why when they translate Deuteronomy 6:4, hear, O Israel, Yahweh our God, Yahweh is one. That's the traditional Jewish translation of it. Okay. The issue they're fighting with there is Trinitarian. Yahweh is one. And they're emphasizing he's one. Okay, not three in one. Okay, but Trinitarianism wasn't an issue for the Jews at this time, was it?
Israelites at this time.
Nobody brought that up yet.
Okay, and there are 4 possible translations on the way you can do Deuteronomy 6:4. I think the emphasis from Moses is Yahweh is our God. Okay, and the way Hebrew works in that phrasing, Yahweh Eloheinu, is it can be Yahweh our God or Yahweh is our God. The Hebrew works both ways in sentence construction. And then the question following it with is one or is it him alone? Okay, sometimes they'll translate in the Orthodox prayer book, they'll say the one and only. Okay, and they're trying to get that force of echad there, that it's him alone, only him. Okay, there isn't usually the verb is in Hebrew. A lot of foreign languages don't use that word. It's assumed in it. That's why I said the sentence structure, Yahweh Eloheinu, can be translated either Yahweh our Lord or Yahweh is our Lord. Not Yahweh our Lord. Yahweh is our God or Yahweh our God.
Mm-hmm.
And you have 2 different, I forget right off the top of my head what the name is, but you have, one is the attributive position, the other one is something else.
Yeah.
Okay, but in Hebrew it works both ways. In English we make a distinction that they don't make.
Uh-huh.
Okay, and Moses' point is Yahweh is our God, Yahweh alone, or Yahweh only. And the word echad means one, but it has a variation of meaning, just like a lot of English words. It may mean exactly this here, and it means something a little bit different over here. What's the emphasis here? He's not emphasizing that Yahweh is one and not Trinitarian. That's not the issue. The issue is idolatry. Okay, Yahweh and Yahweh alone. In Zechariah, you have a phrase, in that day Yahweh's name will be one, and Yahweh's name will be one, and he will be one, something like that. Okay. Well, the issue all around it is all the idols are going to be done away with. The Kabbalists come in and say, see, Yahweh has been split into 10 different Sephirot. Okay, but in that day, all those Sephirot are going to come back together and Yahweh will be one again. That's not the point. When idolatry is done away with, it will be Yahweh and Yahweh's name alone that people will call on. It has nothing to do with one, it means alone. Just like here, the emphasis is you worship Yahweh and Yahweh only. Okay? Which is why when I say the Shema, I emphasize Yahweh is our God, Yahweh alone. Okay? Because we should have no shades of other gods or saints or other things coming in that we pray to. But the point is, don't go to anybody else. And that was Israel's problem. If Yahweh didn't answer, and of course Yahweh is seen as the male god, and if you wanted children, what did you do? You went to the female fertility goddess. And Ashtarte was Yahweh's competition. Okay, also known as Ishtar, also known as Eostre. Where do we get Easter from? Eostre. Okay, why does the church have bunnies and eggs at the resurrection celebration?
Fertility
Sign of
rites.
fertility.
Yeah, because it's syncretism. They brought paganism and Christianity together, and they mixed them. And this is one of the big problems in missions, is you go in, you lead people to faith in Messiah and Yahweh, and then when they don't get their prayers answered the way they think they should be answered, they go back to the old religion, because the old religion gave them children. Children is one of the biggest draws back to paganism. Because if you don't have children, then your line dies. Okay, and that's a bad thing. Okay, and so they're quite often going back to the fertility goddesses. And the idea of exclusive worship is, well, it's rare except for Judaism, Islam, Christianity. Okay, which makes up roughly half of the planet's population. They're exclusive. The other half of the world is not exclusive. You go to Buddhism or Hinduism, and it's like, hey, anything goes, if this God doesn't answer you, then you turn to this one. Okay, and in India, that's very common. There's no exclusion to the gods. Okay, you go to the one that deals with your problem. Okay, and you make an offering, and that he's supposed to answer. And if he doesn't answer, then you go to someone else. Okay, the biblical view is very exclusive. Yahweh and Yahweh only. And we have that mindset. The rest of the world doesn't. And then on verse 8, you shall not make for yourself an idol in the form of anything in heaven above, or on the earth beneath, or in the waters below. You shall not bow down to them or worship them, for I, Yahweh your God, am a jealous God, punishing the children for the sin of the fathers to the third and fourth generation of those who hate me, but showing love to 1,000 generations of those who love me and keep my commandments. Okay, does this do away with art, representative art?
No.
I don't believe so.
No, because the essence of what's going on here is you're bowing down and worshiping them. Okay, why has Islam gone to the extent that they say no representative art?
Because they have interpreted it as any kind of art. They just went ahead and did that.
I don't think it's so much an interpretation as it is the Arab people were heavily steeped in idolatry.
Yes.
Okay, Muhammad is trying to correct the idolatry issue.
Overcorrect.
But yeah, it's an overcorrection.
I see.
If your people are trained in the idea of praying to an object, okay, and you're telling them pray only to God, but you have all this art, they tend back towards the art constantly.
Right.
Okay, because it's a habit, and I think that he overcompensated in a sense in trying to get rid of anything that could lead them back. Okay, just like in Judaism. Okay, what we were talking about halakha earlier. Okay, compare that to Sharia law. It's like fencing. Okay, here's what the law says. You don't want to cross this. But everybody has a tendency to fall over this edge. So we'll make another law as a fence so you don't get near the actual breaking of the law. If you have no art, can you commit idolatry? No. Yes, you can. Ephesians 3 says that greed is idolatry.
Yeah.
In fact, the idolatry of first century Judaism was greed. Money was the idol. Okay, but when you think about idolatry in the literal sense, if you have no art, it's much harder to fall into idolatry. Okay, and so you say, well, it looks like a good idea, but do you really want to do away with art entirely? at the time of the Reformation, what happened? At the time of the Reformation, the Protestants went into the Catholic churches and they smashed all the idols.
I didn't
They
know that.
burned the paintings. They came in to cleanse it because they said, this stuff, people have been praying to this stuff. We don't want this anymore. So they did away with it. And there was kind of an outcry going, well, as long as we don't use it for prayer, can we still have art? And they had to debate this issue all over again. Because in a lot of places, everything was smashed.